Hi guys, Miss Osuna here. Let's go on ahead and start part 2 of our rendering lace and stretch denim. So the first thing is go on ahead and grab your white ink gel pen, and now we're just going to add more layers. So I'm just adding those gathers with the white ink gel pen, and once I'm done with that, I'm going to wave the top line with that white ink gel pen, and I'm going to also add gathers to our lower portion of the shirt right on top of the lines that I've already created, and you can just see it adds another layer of depth. This is an illustration choice. Once you're done with that, go on ahead and add dots for the beaded texture. Now for the face, we are going to move forward. I'm going to take paper just to put under my hand so I don't smudge the work. And I have my mechanical pencil that has a hard lead so it does not smear, but I'm using a very light touch. So I've divided like a letter T as in Thomas. I've divided horizontally and vertically. And then the next step, of course, is to do the smile and frown shapes for the eye and the beginning of the mouth. At the eye line, start off with a frown and then drag it down toward the mouth and smile for the ear. Now I'm just bringing details out for the eye, diagonal line toward the center of the nose just to give a teardrop shape, and then I'm putting parenthesis shapes in for the pupil. Next, we are going to have a frown shape above the eye for the eyelid. And then, of course, another series of frowns for our brow. Once again, you can do this combination in any way that works for you. I have a dash in the center of her lips so that I can tell the top and bottom lip separation. So now here I am just thickening the brow, but once again, I still am not pressing very hard. That way, the marker doesn't get muddied because of the lead. Moving on, I'm going to define the top of our eye with our black fine point and the pupil as well, the center of that eye. So that frown, and then I'm giving smiles on the edges by the ear for lashes. Literally the whole face is really done with a series of smiles and frowns and sort of parenthesis shapes. So now I'm just going to darken that top of our eye by going back and forth over it. This is a choice for you as far as how dark you want it or how big or small you want your lashes to be. I've done lashes going upward and also a few going down. Those are smaller for my choice. Now with a chocolate brown marker, I'm going to touch the outer edges of our pupil very lightly, and it softens and gives a little indication of eye color. You can choose any eye color that you like. Then I'm going to use white ink gel pen to put a dot right in the center of the eye that just gives light reflection in her eyes. You could also choose to do the light reflection with a different color. Now I'm going to go on ahead with a dark colored pencil. So this is dark brown to start, and I'm just adding to the brow. And here I'm going to place black lipstick. So I'm starting at the left side, which is our shadow side. I'm on the top and bottom of our lip, and I'm going to leave the center of that top lip uncolored. Doing the same for our bottom lip, leaving the center uncolored. And I just added a tiny little bit more color on the left and right side, more on the left, less on the right. And now a dot of white ink gel pen, just again for reflection. White ink gel pen is see-through somewhat, so you will be able to still see through it. Now 2 frowns for the nose with my drawing pencil. This one is a soft lead because I want that smeary, thick feeling. And then thickening the brows with it as well. Then it's time to move on. Next, we are going to add a little bit more shadow to our face. So here I have a camel color and I'm adding shadow under the nose, just in the parenthesis shape. And I'm also adding it under the eye at the center of the face and on the outer edges to set in her skin tone. I'm adding this camel color on her lid in that frown shape. I'm adding it also on the ears. Now I'm just adding a little more shadow on my shadow side above her eye and under her eye and on the cheek. This again is as much as you want. Underneath her chin as well. And the bridge of her nose. Next, on the right side, which is our light side, I add a touch above her eye. And I'm going to just define that chin and add and choose to make it a tiny bit darker because the chin sticks out and it casts a shadow on the neck. Our next step, we're going to move forward and work on her hair. So I have smile shapes on the left side of her head with a dark gray to start. Her hair will be black. And then a W shape on the left and the right sides because it's very short hair in those places. So that smile shape is the beginning of our hair and it's swooped over toward the left side of the page. And I'm just going to add to it until I have the length that I want. I do want to keep it fairly short. Next, I'm going to go in with black marker and I'm adding. So I'm starting at the head, the base, and I'm just putting small smile shapes toward the left just to thicken the hair. Then I move toward the outer edges of her hair, very lightly touching so that the root of the hair feels like a thicker stroke and then the edges of her hair feel like a thinner stroke. Now I'm going to add some dark brown to that and it picks up the black and it starts to blend in much like real hair. So there are several colors in one hair color. Now we're going to move to adding some black colored pencil, and black colored pencil is darker than the black marker itself. So I'm starting at the root of her hair and of course I'm having lighter strokes as I get towards the edge. So I'm just adding thickness to her hair and fullness to her hair. I also want to make sure that I add some highlights. So here I have the white ink gel just for some highlights. Now I'm adding fine point pen, and that fine point pen again just gives a different texture of stroke. So I'm using that at the left side on the edges of her hair just to fill in a tiny bit more. Now it's time to draw the earrings. So with my mechanical pencil that has the hard lead, I'm going to start off with a circle shape because these are going to be hoops. Once I'm done with that, now I'm going to move to my black fine point and I'm just going to make wiggly lines on top of that circle. And that is going to add to the shape because this is a bent wire hoop. So I'm adding a second line just to give some depth. Now I'm going to smear it. So I am adding dots and wiggly lines right on top of that with the gel pen. So this white gel pen starts to smear and it makes a metal look. Except we're not going to keep it in a metal look. We're going to also add color. But you can definitely see through your white ink gel pen. And that on purpose is what we want. Now I'm moving over to some correction pen. Can't see through that as much. And I am going to add several dots. They're larger and it starts to give the feeling of light bouncing off of our earring. Notice the left earring is darker because that's our shadow side. The right earring is lighter. Now I'm going to go back in with my mechanical pencil and add some lines. I was going to do at first the lines with the black fine point, but I decided that would be too much contrast. So I'm just doing these reflective lines starting in the center and then making a radial motion moving up to the left and then down. But I'm starting in the center and then all the lines go from there. So now that I have those motion strokes that make it feel like light is bouncing off, I've added terracotta. That's sort of a light orangey brown. And then I'm going to move on and add in yellow. This is the canary yellow, just dots. And I've done it both on the thick and thin side of my tip so that you get a difference in your consistency. And that's what we want for an earring like this. I'm going to switch to a demo close up on a larger sheet so that you can see how we get to this point. Okay, so as promised, here's the close up. I am literally have just traced off the same sketch and now I am going to use my cerulean blue. This is a lighter blue, but you don't necessarily have to start off this light if you wanted a darker wash denim ultimately. So just pick the colors that work for whatever denim you want. I'm just filling in the entire skirt and try to remember that you always want to create a feeling of layering. So this is going to be a process where we go back and forth after layer after layer after layer. So now I'm going on the shadow side again. My shadow side is the left side, and of course I'm adding more there. And then on the right side, I'm adding that edge. And I'm going to go on ahead and continue, like I said, layer after layer to thicken and add so that we can start to get the effect of the denim. Now here, diagonally, that's her thigh in the center of our sketch. And then I have some whiskers over on the side. And these lines are pretty straight. They're slightly diagonal. But these whiskers are allowing us to be able just to capture the feeling of the movement of the actual denim. So this is a very tight fitting skirt. It's like skin tight because it has a lot of stretch to it, but that still does create that wrinkly whisker effect. And that effect is at the crotch area and the thigh area. So just diagonal lines right there. And now I have a tin. This is just like a metal tin top, and I'm going to spread some black on that tin. And you can see there's other colors in there too. I do this technique often. This concept literally just allows us to dip our blue marker into a tiny bit of black paint to get a graded effect. So as you can see here, I will just start to dip my blue marker into the black ink from my black marker. And now I'm just going to start to color the sketch with it. And as I continue coloring, the concept is that there will be less and less black ink. So it starts to fade away. It's not permanent. So I'm just going to go on ahead down this left side now. With each time I'm going into the black ink and then I'm coloring the sketch. As I continue coloring, the actual black fades away, and that's what we want. It's a graded shadow. So take your time when you're doing this process and see how I just continue coloring, and then all of a sudden it goes back to the lighter blue. Then I dip it again, and you'll just go back and forth throughout this process the entire time until you get the gradation that you personally are after. So I'm starting on my shadow side, and now I'm going with the leftover into my light side. So the lighter side still does feel like a light source is over there. So I'm just going to continue this process, and then after I go back and forth between my blue and let that black run out, and then dipping it back into the black where it's a stronger dark tone, and then let it run out. After I finish going back and forth that way, I'm going to move on to colored pencil to get that thickness of our denim. So this is a lighter weight than a traditional denim, and I'm going to use 3 colors. I have blue, black, and white colored pencils. So you'll see I'm just going to go in very soft circles over the entire surface, and I'll also move diagonally. And this is just going to add to the nap or the thickness of the denim. Now that I've finished the dark blue, I'm going to go on ahead and do some black. And that's really at the edge, especially where the shirt overlays, and then on our shadow side of the skirt. So you just want to pull out some deeper tones and very gently go over those whiskers. You can definitely decide to go harder, but I'm actually pressing very lightly, especially in the beginning. But if you do want a darker tone ultimately, then you can press a little bit harder. Now that I've used my black, it's time for me to move on to the white, and I'm just going to go on ahead and do the same thing. So these 3 layers together will help to give the feeling of denim. The twill feeling is achieved by just having this very soft colored pencil texture on top of the marker. As I continue to fade out certain areas and leave other areas dark, that's really just based on preference. That's it for the close-up, and now let's get back to our sketch. Literally, now we're just going to continue this process, and we will add as much or as little as you personally want. But follow along, I'm going to continue adding more. Now we're just going to continue adding the whiskers at the center of her body. So I'm just dipping my blue. This is a cerulean blue, but you can use any blue that you have. And I'm dipping it into black marker that I have spread onto my tin surface so that it turns dark blue. And I'm going down the shadow side, up and down, and you can see it just deepens the blue. I have the Z shape at the knee because that's where it's bending, and this is a stretch denim. Now I'm going to just continue going back and forth as I add more black to my blue. In the center by her thigh, I just want to darken because one leg is coming forward and so there's a shadow. Then you can see you can clear off your marker on scratch paper. So you'll be able to get back to the original color with no problem. I'm going to put that marker away. That was my lightest blue. And I'm going to move on to our next step. Now that I feel satisfied with the colors of the marker that I have, I'm going to move to a dark blue colored pencil. And now you can see I'm going to add that twill texture that denim has. So I'm diagonally creating some soft, very, very, very soft strokes, and that's giving thickness to our denim. The marker is more smooth, the colored pencil is thicker. So you want to do a diagonal pattern in both directions, because if you look really closely, the twill pattern actually looks like that. Once again, you can do this with whatever color blue you have. I've chosen a very dark midnight blue. And now I'm going to do the same thing with my white. Notice the pencil is on its side. So with the white colored pencil, I'm just going very lightly over the surface and it starts to feel thicker. And notice I go both directions with my diagonal so that you can see that twill pattern. Now I'm moving back to the dark blue and I'm just adding on the edges and under the shirt with the point of my colored pencil. So I'm softening and defining these edges. And then I'll go in and add another layer on top of the white colored pencil with some diagonal strokes, again both ways, so that the more you do it, the more you layer, the thicker and the fuller and the softer it's going to look, because this is a stretch denim, so it is softer than the denim that does not have stretch. So now that I like the softness of our denim, I'm going to move on and add the stitch lines on the left side and right side of our skirt at the side seams. I'm going to add 2 rows so that there is a representation of the double stitching that is so common with denim. So I'm doing this with white gel pen, but of course you could do this darker if you wanted. I just want the contrast, so I'm doing it with white ink gel pen. So that's 2 rows of stitching on the left side, and then there'll be 2 rows of stitching on the right side, because denim is constructed with that double stitch for the top stitch. Now that I have those rows of double stitching on the left side seam and right side seam, I'm just going to soften them a tiny bit with my dark blue colored pencil. So wait for it to dry and then go back lightly. Rub your colored pencil very gently over the white stitching, and then that will soften the look. But you can still see it. If you press too hard, you will remove the white altogether, and that's not what I want to do. So make sure that you press very lightly. And now we have deeper shadows with our black colored pencil, and that's right underneath the shirt because literally there's a cast shadow. The shirt is on top, the skirt is underneath. Now I'm going to add black to our nail polish, and these nails are going to be pointed. So I'm just going to very gently start off by adding a tiny bit, and then we'll just go back and add more and more. You could also do this with a fine point black ink if you wanted, but I'm just using the brush tip of my Copic marker. So I'm going to grab a piece of paper and put under my hand so I can do the hand on the left side of our sketch. You just want to protect your work, and you don't want the natural oils in your hand to rub onto your work. Now that we finished our nail polish, I am going to use my mechanical pencil and create the bracelet shapes on the left side of the sketch. So it's basically a circle but with a wavy line once again because it matches the earrings. And you can see it's lower on the hand because I'm going to do a second one that's higher. The second one will be above it and it will be much smaller. So I'm just taking my black fine point and putting wavy lines on top of my pencil. Now I'm just going to soften that. Remember, you can see through this ink gel pen. So I'm softening that with my white ink gel pen, and you can see through it, and that gives that metal feeling. Now that that's done, I'm going to draw the second one. Notice it's not as wide as the first, it's above it. Another wavy line, and then of course black fine point on top of it, and then a straight line to connect the two. And now I'm covering my page and I'm going to soften that with my ink gel pen. Remember, you can still see through it, so I'm going to now turn that into a softer look with the white ink gel pen. Okay, now I'm going to move to some correction pen, and I'm putting that on top of our upper portion of this bracelet, and then I'm going to color it. I have two colors here. They're going to just gently have a few dots of this color. One of them is a yellow orange, the other is a canary yellow, and that's just to add a variety. They both will make it feel sort of gold, and I'm just adding dots here and there so that I can feel like the light is bouncing off of the gold. Now that I have completed the bracelet, I'm going to just add a highlight. So I'm just going to put a dot on the ball of her nose and then a straight line at the bridge of the nose. And that goes up toward the brow. Next, it's going to be time to add a little color to the right side of her hand. So this is just white ink gel for a highlight. Now I'm just going to soften the skirt with my white colored pencil a tiny bit more. This makes it feel like washed out denim, and the denim washes are extremely important. So you're going to decide if you want this step or not. But I'm just whitening where the thighs are because this particular denim is very worn out. So this is my choice to take my white colored pencil and just give a little more softness. Okay, that's it for this tutorial. Thanks so much for taking the time to sketch with me. I am Miss Osuna, and until we meet again, happy sketching.